All right, tech family, super excited today because I am here in Jarrod's studio with Jarrod's Tech. So if you don't know Jarrod, he's one of the biggest gaming laptop reviewers out there. He has a fantastic channel. I'll link it in the description below, so go check it out. Let's get into it. So today, guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna first talk about tech, right? That's why a lot of you guys are here. We're passionate about tech, so we'll talk about tech as it is today, what's coming, and what we're excited about. Then we'll switch gears, and we're gonna talk a little bit about life as a YouTuber. So let's get into it. On the tech side, what was your favorite laptop that you've reviewed to date? The one you opened up, you started using, and you were like, wow, this is just so much better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, so there's kind of two really. The first one that comes to mind is obviously the Lenovo Legion 5, if anyone's seen any of my recent videos in the last few months. So I gave that one some pretty high praise. I think as a good mid-range option, it does a lot right. Now, obviously, no laptop is perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. It all comes down to finding trade-offs that you can personally deal with. And I just found that for the money, that one had the fewest trade-offs. The other laptop I'll just briefly mention is a bit of a higher priced option. So it's the Electronics Mech 15 G3 in the US market or the XMG Neo 15 in Europe. And that's just a Tongfang chassis. And again, it just gets a lot right.
That's interesting. I think, for me, the one that really surprised me in a good way, and it doesn't mean that I feel it's the best laptop out there. If it was, you'd probably see it sitting there in front of me. But the Framework laptop, I just felt like this is a fully upgradable laptop. Even the CPU is upgradable. I just truly thought, honestly, the laptop would be absolutely crap. I thought they'd have sacrificed so much to make it upgradable, but they really didn't. It was a pretty good laptop. So that was the one for me, actually. It really surprised me. So, okay, let's do the flip side here. What was the laptop you opened up, started using, you had high hopes for, and you were just like, this is just rubbish?
Yeah, so I think this year it's probably going to have to be the Acer Helios 300, which is kind of sad to say because just a couple of years ago in 2019, it was one of the best options you could get with GTX 1660 Ti. I think it was like $1,000 and it was just cheaper and better than the competition.
Yeah.
But this year they've just kept the same laptop, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because, I get that these things take R&D budget to create. Yeah. You can't just redesign the entire thing each time. It's just that it seems like they kind of went out of their way to actively make it worse, which, it doesn't make sense. Like, there's just low GPU power limit. The screen, at least in my region, Asia, Australia, Pacific area, was just objectively bad in all measurable regards. Fortunately, that wasn't the case in the US market, so it might be a bit of a different story there. But also in Australia, they shipped it to me with single channel memory. So even if you're spending higher money to get, say, an RTX 3060, which should perform amazingly, I found that even a GTX 1660 Ti from 2-3 years ago in some games could end up performing better just because of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. And funnily enough, if you solve, because it's one stick of RAM, right? So if you solve the RAM problem, then you're paying even more, which is, again, should you even be buying that laptop in the first place?
Yeah.
And, on my side, the ones that really eat me up are the super expensive laptops that they're just such basic things that they screw up on. Yeah, this one, of course, this is the Aero 17, by the way, top tier laptop, so many fantastic things about it. Why has it got a webcam that looks up your nose that's underneath the screen? Why does the secondary function keys not light up? There's so many,
question.
And also you and I have talked about this as we're filming. Sometimes the fans will kick on just when you're pretty much doing nothing, and they don't come on that loud, but it's enough to be noticeable. And there's just so many laptops like that, really expensive ones. I think Razer, and by the way, with a lot of these manufacturers have been doing what I would consider very lazy updates. What they'll do is grab a chassis that was imperfect last year. This year it's even more imperfect, and then I'll just update the internals. And where that gets even worse is when the cooling wasn't good enough to begin with, and they've now put higher powered components inside. For me, I'd say the Razer Blade Advanced, especially the one early in 2021, there was two last year, as you would know it. I just want to make sure the audience knows. That one, the 3080 in it was capped at a very low wattage. That chassis itself it just can't cool the components inside properly. It's also metallic. It's super hot to the touch. Dave 2D talks about this in his review, and I found this with mine. The chassis, especially the black one, can chip pretty easily. And then you've paid close to $3,000 or even more than $3,000 for a beautiful looking laptop with an obvious chip in it. It's just, those really expensive laptops that just they could do better, you know? So, yeah. But let's move on to the next question. So, on the more positive note, what tech are you excited for in 2022? Because we're right around the corner from CES.
Yeah, so I've got a pretty good idea of what's coming, but I think what I'm personally most interested in is just seeing how Intel 12th gen works, because they've got the whole P and E core separation. So we've already seen on the desktop side how that can be quite competitive, especially when it comes to multi-core performance. Now, in terms of gaming, multi-core performance, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it does matter, but in most games, not all games, but most games, I don't think it matters that much. But that said, there are still obviously other improvements with 12th gen, such as improved single core performance, and that will help a bit more with gaming performance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have compared 12th gen with 11th gen in games on the desktop side, and I didn't find it to make that big of a difference in terms of gaming. Now, productivity workloads where you can actually use the extra threads, it was a completely different story. So for anyone doing productivity on their laptop, I think 12th gen is going to destroy.
And hopefully, to your point about the performance and the efficiency cores, also I would hope that battery life and thermals and things like that, hopefully. What's your prediction there?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on things like power limits at the end of the day. From what we saw on the desktop side, under full multi-core load, the 12th gen stuff could actually get fairly warm and use a lot of power. So maybe the mobile stuff is tuned differently. I'm not sure yet because I haven't got it to test right now. We'll have to wait and see. I'm kind of hopeful that battery life will be better, mostly because, let's face it, Intel 11th gen battery life wasn't the best. Ryzen was much better.
Yeah.
But now that they've got the whole P and E core separation, maybe they can optimize it so that workloads on battery focus on the E-cores or something. Maybe that is better performance per watt.
Particularly for people who are doing, non-gaming related tasks or non-performance related tasks, I would hope. We've got to wait and see.
Yeah, got to test the stuff still.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a very interesting year. Make sure, by the way, that you're subscribed. I'm going to put Jarrod's channel, as I said, down below, because obviously he's going to have plenty of content on these laptops, as will I. So let's get on to the next question. And actually, I didn't even say my thoughts on 2022. I think I'm going to take a different approach here. I felt, just using laptops this year, that there were a lot of just gotchas. I tested numerous laptops with light-colored keys with a light-colored backlight where it became very hard to see the keyboard in certain lighting conditions. That was just super annoying. There's still a lot of laptops out there with bad webcams. We saw some of the Asus laptops with no webcams. That's just not useful in the year like that we've had and what we're going into with a lot more people working from home. Sound, a lot of speakers in laptops, just still. The MacBook Pro 16 came out in 2019 and had phenomenal speakers, and PC laptops have really struggled to catch up there. So I'm actually really looking forward to it next year, hopefully seeing some of those gotchas that we saw in 2021 being closed and manufacturers solving them. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, they just need to focus on getting the basics right. I mean, like I said before, nothing's perfect, but it seems like sometimes there are some pretty big trade-offs, like one laptop might not have a camera at all, then it might have great speakers, but then another one might have a camera, but then it's got crappy speakers. It's just hard to find something that's good all around.
Yeah, and I think for those kind of more simple things, I would hope that in 2022, we're going to see a lot of them closed. I was a bit surprised, like the Alienware X15, to see a brand new designed laptop that still had the secondary function keys not light up. I mean, that's just silliness. It's silliness. It makes it very hard to use in a dark room. So let's get on to the next question now. All right, Jarrod. So while I have you here, a lot of viewers are going to need to buy a laptop without being able to wait till the new laptops arrive that are going to be announced at CES. Many of them, especially right now, are going to have long lead times. For people who want to buy a laptop right now, give us your recommendations of gaming laptops at the low price range, the medium price range, and the high price range.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I think the best time to buy a laptop is when you need one. So if you need something now, probably just buy it. But if there is something just around the corner, it could be worth waiting. Again, you never know, especially in human malware times and supply shortages, it affects things a lot. It also heavily affects prices, which makes it really difficult for me to recommend something at the low end. So throughout 2021, just low-end laptops have been hard to suggest because, say for instance, in 2020, I'm pretty sure the budget-friendly gaming laptop I was suggesting was the Acer Nitro 5. And that was about $650, which is about as cheap as you can get a gaming laptop that has discrete graphics. But then the next year in 2021, the same laptop was about $900 for the same specs. Nothing's changed. So it's just supply and demand and, all those issues that we've been dealing with for the last year. So because you have to end up spending like $900 to get entry-level GTX 1650 hardware, I think you might as well just save $100 extra and get something that's going to be way better, like an RTX 3060.
Absolutely.
So I think that makes sense. But of course, not everyone can get that extra $100 together. I get it. So in that case, the Acer Nitro 5 does have a lot of, issues. It's a budget-friendly machine. Nothing's going to be perfect. And at the lower price point, you are going to have more things to deal with. That's just the way it works. But in terms of mid-range, if you can save up, I think something like the Lenovo Legion 5 is a really great option. As mentioned earlier, just gets a lot right. And again, for the higher end option, again, like I said earlier, that Electronics Mech 15 G3. And I would expect all of these models to be refreshed throughout 2022 with both new processor and graphics as well.
So that makes a lot of sense, Jarrod. Those are some really good selections. Now, guys, if you want to see what I'm recommending right now, I'll post a link to my video that I just did recently because I went through all of them in all the different price brackets in the description below, so go check that out. So let's ask a little bit of a different question here, and I think this is really an important one. What laptop do you actually use? Because I think that's always very telling, and tell people perhaps the kind of use case that you have, because use cases is so important when buying a laptop. What you need might be different to how we use the laptops, and therefore what we use, right?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I spend a lot of my time at home, so I end up using a desktop PC for most of my work because the fact is it's just more power. But for the laptop I currently use, it's this one right here, which is the Gigabyte Aero 17. And that was an upgrade over the older Aero 15X. So it's a bit of a bigger version, 17 inches versus 15 inches. However, because most 17-inch laptops are quite thin these days, I can actually still fit this into my camera bag, which was designed for 15-inch laptops.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and I guess camera bag kind of gives it away a bit. I'm using a laptop mostly for content creation and when not at home. So when I'm out and about for events like CES or Computex, for example, obviously we haven't done a whole lot of traveling for the last couple of years. So I haven't actually had a whole lot of use for editing video on the go, but I am definitely ready to get back out there with the Aero 17. Now, that said, it's by no means perfect. As we've discussed earlier in this video, it's got things like nose cam, secondary keys don't light up, fans ramp up. If you've seen my recent video where I go a bit more into depth about the tech that I use, I have had some blue screen issues with this laptop. Hopefully that's been sorted by an Intel graphics update, but I'm still testing it out. But so far things are looking good after that update.
Oh, good. And that's, funnily enough, that's actually one of my favorite laptops myself. I actually really do like that laptop if you want a bigger laptop. Just on my side, you see me here with the MacBook Pro 14, guys. In full transparency, I actually travel with two laptops. I do have the Legion Slim 7 back in the hotel room, which I absolutely love. Both of these laptops are very good. This is the MacBook Pro 14, by the way. It's got the M1 Pro chip. I was talking to Jarrod a bit about this. I also have the MacBook Pro 14 with the M1 Max chip, the one with the 24-core GPU. That one, it gets quite noticeably warmer to the touch when using it than this one. This is the base model of the M1 Pro. Also, that one, honestly, its battery life is pretty poor. This one does have substantially longer battery life. So if you are choosing between, a MacBook Pro 14, please keep that in mind. That being said, on the M1 Max side, what I did find is rendering videos, which is kind of my use case. It does render videos literally twice as fast as this one. But, I chose the longer battery life, the cooler operation, because in my use case, I'm spending most of my time on this laptop, I'm not just editing videos, I'm literally writing scripts for videos, I'm researching videos, I'm just browsing the internet, doing things like that. Now, the reason I have the Legion Slim 7 and I'm traveling with that is I kind of like to do a bit of gaming on the side, and I am playing an unusually large amount of League of Legends TFT right now, and yes, I could play it on this laptop, of course, but I do enjoy playing it on the bigger screen, and I personally enjoy gaming on Windows laptops more than I do on the Mac. So that's a wonderful little bit of benefit that we have as YouTube tech reviewers, that we have these kind of options available to us, which is really, really nice. So let's go, using that as kind of like a way to switch into the next topic. So the next topic, guys, we're going to talk about life as a YouTuber. So if you're interested in what it's like behind the scenes as tech reviewers, and Jarrod is full-time, I'm part-time, we're going to cover it now. So let's get into it. So the first one, for anyone aspiring to be a YouTuber, tell us a bit about, What's involved, Jarrod? What is it like being a full-time YouTube tech reviewer?
It's the worst. You know what? I quit right now. I'm done. But seriously, it's great. The best things.
Since Jarrod's quitting, by the way, guys, I guess we could just give away his laptop. What do you reckon?
No, I'll keep that one. No, it's great. I like not having to work for a boss. I can do whatever I want. I mean, obviously within reason. I still have to produce content to make a living, but it's about being able to do what you want when you want it, I guess, under your own terms. I think that's what it comes down to.
No, very interesting. And it sounds like you really enjoy it, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Because I know, there can be some pretty tough times that people don't see, because obviously we're presenting to you guys on camera, the most punchiest, most excited that we are. But, tell us about some of the stuff that perhaps behind the scenes that people don't get to see.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people probably just aren't aware of the amount of time it takes to just get like all the testing done. So like I might flash up a graph on the screen for 3 seconds and then it's gone. But to collect the data for that, I might have had to have tested each individual laptop for over an hour. So that definitely does add up. Now, fortunately, within the last year, my partner has actually started helping me out doing a lot of the testing on the channel. So thanks to her, we're both able to have testing running in the background while I might be filming or scripting and that kind of thing. So being able to split up those responsibilities has allowed me to get a lot more done.
Yeah, and it's really shown. I mean, you've been pumping out the videos,
Thanks.
Lots of high quality videos. It's been very, very impressive. On my side, it's interesting. I also very, very much enjoy it. I certainly wanted like a creative outlet that I could, help people. And I love posting videos and just seeing the positive comments of when you really help people. Like I get comments like there was a recently one who was a mother who said I helped her choose a laptop, and then I helped her daughter choose a laptop, and her son who's going to college, and just, you get joy out of that, which is really, really nice. It feels really, really good. But like for me, I'm recording oftentimes in a very challenging recording environment, being in a skyscraper in the New York City area. And I have helicopters going by the window all the time, like literally sitting outside my window. This is very first world problems, but it's still problems. And I'm using the place I'm recording in is very echoey. So I'm using a directional lapel mic on my clothes, which is wireless. And because of all the interference being in New York skyscrapers, sometimes I have to re-record. So there's a lot of times where I literally have to you'll see a video, and I probably shot that video like 4 or 5 times because of these issues. It can be quite intense, but it's a labor of love. So yeah. All right, Jarrod. So given we have a tech-loving audience, as obviously so do we, I think one of the most quintessential questions is, how do we get so much tech to review? How do we get on these laptops? I mean, guys, I've already talked about the fact I'm blessed. I have 2 M1 MacBook Pro 14s. Isn't that great? With the M1 Pro chip and the M1 Max chip. I'm traveling with 2 laptops.
One for each hand, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a wonderful benefit of being a tech reviewer. But why don't you tell the audience about how does that happen for you?
Yeah, so a joke I always like to tell is, if you want to get free gaming laptops, just be a tech reviewer, right?
It's easy.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
But seriously, as mentioned earlier, it is a lot of work that goes into it behind the scenes, so it's not quite that simple, and it does take a long time to build up. For the most part, I would say 99% of the review units that I get, they're just borrowed. So a company will send them to me to test out for like 2 to 3 weeks. And then once I'm done, that gets sent off to the next reviewer. So I don't get to keep the machines. Generally, I can get a lot of laptops that way, but it's not always the case. Sometimes I do have to end up buying them with my own money.
Yeah.
So this year I had to buy 4 different gaming laptops. And generally I try to only buy them if they're popular models that viewers are actually asking for in the comments.
Yeah.
Because then, if it doesn't make sense for me to spend my own money on it, I'm not going to go and waste my money.
Yeah.
So if a lot of people want to see it and it's a popular model, and I think it might be something worth hanging on to potentially to compare next generation, for instance, say the Lenovo Legion 5, that was, I think, one of the best laptops of the year. I bought that with my own money because I thought it would be worth keeping that to review in future.
Yeah. And Jarrod, just like you, I also have relationships with manufacturers who do send me laptops to review. But, sometimes these laptop review programs, they just don't have the latest and greatest laptops. And funnily enough, you'd expect them to, right? You'd think they're coming to reviewers first and then being sold to the public second. But sometimes they're on sale to the public before we get them. So in those cases, I often have to go buy them because I don't have to go buy them, right? I think that you guys would be interested in seeing them, and I'm interested in seeing what they're like. So in those cases, I do go and buy them. So yeah, well, let's jump into the next question. Since we're all tech lovers here, let's talk about what camera tech we actually use to make these videos, to give people a little bit of an insight on what goes on behind the scenes. So why don't you lead off and tell us what you're using? What are we filming on right now?
Yeah, so right now this is being filmed on the Panasonic GH5. I've got the Sigma 18 to 35 lens with a Metabone speed booster. A lot of other YouTube channels use this exact same setup. It's just called, a lot of people refer to it as like the YouTuber Holy Trinity. So a lot of people use the same kind of setup, which is what got my interest in it. We've got a microphone here, Rode NTG3, and a big aperture 120D light lighting us there. So that's everything that we're currently filming with here. I am very interested in upgrading the camera though to the Sony a7S III. And Josh has kind of been selling me on that while he's been here.
Yeah. I think the Sony a7S III, if you've watched any kind of camera tech channels, it really is the quintessential YouTube camera going around right now. If you want to spend, decent, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
No, it's not cheap, but it really is a fantastic camera. And I upgraded to it when it came out, which was great. And it just, the picture quality is out of control. One thing that did surprise me though, I actually brought I have two cameras I film on. You'll notice I have a side angle, which I use to kind of like hide the cuts. And it's just the style of video that I do. And that side camera is the Sony a6600, which is part of that Sony APS-C family. And that's also another very common YouTube starting camera, whether it's a6100, a6400. But what we did find is we actually did this exact same shot with the a6600 in this room, and it's a slightly darker room, and it really struggled compared to your camera. So I was very surprised, but I think this is, maybe we're shooting on manual focus here, you don't have the autofocus of the Sonys, but honestly, this camera, the quality of the image really surprised me. It was really good. So
yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And on my side, guys, as I said, and Jarrod kind of covered, Sony a7S III is the main camera. I don't travel with that camera. It's actually really, really big and quite heavy. So you've got to be really committed to travel with that camera. The second camera I use is the Sony a6600. For thumbnails, a year or so ago, I actually bought myself a beautiful photo camera, which I wanted to use just as a hobby to take photography, which is the Fuji X-T4. Now, I haven't got out that much to take photos, but I do use it to take the thumbnails. It just has these bright, vibrant colors, the Fuji, so I really like using it for that. And it's great to, I don't have to edit any of the photos that much. I just crop them and they're straight out of camera. It's fantastic. They're really, actually, that's not technically true. I do a teensy bit of editing, but it's very minor, and that's really great. And then my mic, I'll put the model on screen so you can see it. It's a little bit of a mouthful, so I won't do it. It's a lapel mic with a wireless Sennheiser kit that I use. And then the lights, I actually, similar to Jarrod, Aperture does a fantastic job. In my studio, it's a little bit of a bigger space, a larger space than what Jarrod has here. So for mine, I'm using a 300D bounced off the roof, which is an Aperture 300D. That's the main light. That fills the room with light. And then the shelves behind me is lit by a number of different lights. And then I have a 120D off to the side to kind of combat some of the shadows that you sometimes see with the shelf. So that's the tech that I'm using. All right, tech family. So let's wrap here. Jarrod, thank you very much for having me. It's been wonderful to have this opportunity to spend time with you in person during these crazy times.
Yeah, definitely. Great to meet you.
Yeah, so we've had a great time. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Before I go, I just wanted to say one more time, if you haven't checked out Jarrod's channel, I'll post the link in the description below. Please do. He makes excellent content. And as I always say, guys, go do something awesome with your day, and I'll catch you later.